Greetings, everyone, and welcome to the Mystic Paranormal. I'm Paul James Caden, and today on the channel, I want to do something a little bit different. Something I mentioned uh, when I renamed the channel Mystic Paranormal is that I wanted to talk about paranormal things. I wanted to talk about some of my experiences and share these things with the listening audience. I'm I guess what you would call a sensitive. I've seen things all my life since I was a little kid. I told some of these stories on my YouTube channel a long time ago when I first started podcasting, but I think it's a good time to reshare some of them under this particular format that I've been doing for a while with the ITC research, delving into the paranormal. I'm always a little bit reluctant to talk about these things because I've seen a lot of things in my life. And I just feel like I'm one of those people that these experiences have been drawn to. And I'm reluctant because, unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there, with the hoaxes and the lies, and then just people that are, as we say, there's a lot of crazy out there, and you don't want to be numbered among those people. That's why people like myself that have had experiences, we're not all over the internet. We're not writing book after book, advertising it everywhere. Hey, guess what I saw? There's too much of that. And usually the people that make the most noise are the people you have to be the most watchful of. When they're continually trying to wave people down to get their attention, their money. I'm very skeptical of that sort of thing, and I'd much rather be reserved than someone who is bringing more crazy or making a spectacle of things that I believe in wholeheartedly all of my life. I've had legitimate experiences with that. I know what I experienced. I know what I saw. Um, and I, that's, as I said, that's my journey. Mostly it's for me. And one of the experiences that I had that were crystal clear, there's no doubt about it. People can say, oh, it was a hallucination, it was a bird, it was a bear. There's all kinds of explanations as to why a person never saw what they encountered. But those people weren't there. It's kind of like someone saying, oh, I had the most delicious omelet this morning. And then, we step in and say, how do we know you had an omelet? We think you had cereal. You may be suffering from dementia or a UTI that's giving you dementia because, we think you had cereal. We have no real proof of that, but we think you had cereal and you didn't have that omelet. This was an illusion. You were demented somehow. You were drunk. You were high. So these kind of arguments become uh, echoes of nonsense. People like myself who try to keep these things, in a logical perspective, even a scientific perspective, that you have to be absolutely sure, know that you know that you know that you saw what you saw, not the fleeting glimpse, not the fuzzy photo taken in the woods somewhere. So this story I'm about to tell you about my encounter with something that looked like a Bigfoot, um, is one of those encounters. And this started back in the summer of 1981. I was 14 years old, and there were quite a few of us that hung out in the neighborhood. It was me, my brother, my friend and his sister next door, another friend and his sister on the other side of the road, four brothers on the other side, and their sister who didn't hang out with us much. Uh, but we all hung out. We were always riding our bikes, having backyard boxing matches, all this crazy stuff. So it was probably the later summer of 1981, where the little kids, the younger brothers of, the bigger family next door would be coming around saying, don't ride your bike down the road at night by the woods. When you went, this was a very small country town, South Centerville, New York, in Orange County, just outside of Middletown, New York. When you were out there back then at night, there weren't many cars on the road. There was nobody unless you were with a friend. So it was really quiet. And as you went down the road, there was a Catholic church on the left-hand side. You went over a little bridge, then farther out into the country, fewer houses, and there was this big rock on the side of the road. We just called it the Big Rock. So they would say, don't ride your bike down at the church. Don't go, down to the Big Rock by the woods. There's something in the woods. We're hearing this noise. There's something in the woods. So we just blew it off. The older kids are like, yeah, whatever. We're going back to what we're doing. These kids are trying to pull a prank. So fast forward, maybe a month or so later into, the late September of that year, some of the older kids, were out riding their bikes and saying, hey, maybe they weren't lying. I heard something in the woods. It didn't sound like a deer. This sounded very, very big. There was some, strange growling and grunting noises. It could have been a bear, but, it just kind of, really freaked me out. Some of the kids started to say they saw something big, very big on the edge of the woods at night, but they couldn't really tell what it is. So there was always the speculation, well, could be a bear. There's bears around here. So fast forward to the February now of 1982. There's a lot of snow on the ground. It's Friday night. All the families went grocery shopping on Friday night. And my family was usually the ones that went out first, so we got back before everybody else, they were still out shopping. So I decide it's nighttime, there's snow on the ground. I help carry, I'm now just about 15 years old because my birthday is in February. Can't recall if this was before or after my birthday. So I just go for a walk down to the churchyard. That's where we all walked, where we all went, waiting for my friends to get home. By the time I get back, this one will be home, that one will be home, we'll hang out. So I'm walking down at the churchyard. I enter the churchyard at the front of the church. I hang a right, which goes around to a bigger parking lot for parking in the Sunday school building, kind of to the far left at that point. And as I come around the church, I look and there's a street light kind of right in the middle of the lot, more to the left toward the Sunday school building, so it's not quite center in the parking lot. And I see this thing step out from behind the Sunday school building, and it just kind of meanders up right under the street light. And I'm looking at this thing. It's huge. If I was standing in front of it, as I always say, I'd be looking up at it. I mean, it was a good, at least, I'm about 5'9", 5'10". So this thing must have been in the ballpark of like 8 feet. I mean, it was huge. It was massive, and it was broad. If I was standing in front of it, this thing would probably be at least 1.5, if not 2 of me. I mean, it was broad and it was tall. I could see it wasn't a bear. It's wintertime. It was freezing cold out. There's snow on the ground. Snow that if I had walked in, it would have been, up to my thighs, above my knees. Plus this thing, the shoulders were extremely wide. I could see the definition like a bodybuilder in its chest. It was fairly clear what I was looking at. This was not a bear. Plus the fact that it turned its head to one side and it was like sniffing at the air, like it was smelling something. It didn't have a snout like a bear would have. This looked more like, an ape-like face. And this thing's standing there under the light, sniffing the air. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, what is it? What does it smell? Does it smell me? And if it does, basically my dinner. So I slowly back up around to the front of the church building and just took off as fast as I could run. And now, if this thing meant me harm, um, there's no way I would have outran it. The size of this thing, the stride it must have had, it would have had me dead to rights. I would not be making this video today if it meant me harm. But I know what I saw uh, quite clearly. I mean, I was only, let's see, I'm terrible at measuring things, but I'm going to say maybe 3.5 yards, away from this thing, maybe 4 yards. It wasn't that far. Um, so I had a pretty clear look at it, and I just took off running. Um, it was later that summer that me and a friend of mine were walking again. Here we were right in front of the church. This was one of those dark summer nights, no moon. There was a little bit of light trickling up to the road from the church, but not much. And we're just about in front of the churchyard, and my friend stops and he points across the road and he yells, "What the hell is that?" And he just turns and he starts running back to the house. I'm standing there for a minute, like looking across the road. Now, I couldn't really see anything, except what I did see, again, was something very big and very black. It was darker than the night. Whatever it was, again, I can say this by the shape of the shadow that I'm standing there dumbfounded, going, what is he pointing at? What is he looking at? Again, this was something I would have been looking up at, very big. So I don't know what I'm looking at, this big, you know, shadowy shape on the side of the road. My friend's running down the road, so I turn and I start running. So again, it had ample opportunity to pounce on me. At this point, I was probably uh, uh, maybe 7, 8 feet away from it, if, so again, pretty close, diagonal across the road. Um, so it definitely could have caught me, it could have caught us. So now fast forward to the October of 1982. Now, during this time, people are continuing to hear noises in the woods, see things in the woods. My father, one night, taking a dog for the walk, he goes down the road by the churchyard. He used to walk the dog to, the big rock and back. So there's a little strip of woods, across the road from the church, where me and my friend saw the shadow. And he's walking the dog, and he says he hears something humongous running. He hears feet hitting the ground, breaking through the brush, breaking through the woods, you know, right there on the roadside. He's looking, he said again, he doesn't see anything, but he hears these footsteps, something big, something breathing heavy. He braces for impact. He's waiting for something to hit him, take him off of his feet. And this thing gets right on top of him, and it's gone. Now, my father wasn't privy to all the stories we're telling about whatever's in the woods. Uh, I don't remember if I told him what I saw at the churchyard. I was a pretty vocal kid at that time, so I'm sure I said something to my mother and father like, "Holy crap! You guess what I saw?" But other than that, he wasn't, you know, really that old. My father was a pretty neglectful guy. His kids, he wasn't much involved in our lives, didn't really care what we were doing. He was kind of at least a mentally absent father. So, him telling this story, something huge running out of the woods, he thinks it's going to take him off of his feet. And upon just that moment of impact, there's nothing there. That was significant to us then as it is to me now, because now there's an adult saying they're walking the dog and they encounter something strange, something big in the woods, but couldn't quite identify what it was. This time of year that this happened to him was probably, I want to say this was early spring. We could say bear, but the bear were probably out of hibernation by then. But what kind of bear gets right up on top of you and then it's just gone? He braces for impact and then there's nothing. Where did it go? That's kind of unexplainable. Even if the bear stopped and started walking away, he would have seen it walking away. If it ran back into the woods, he would have heard it, crackling over the sticks and the brush from where it came. There was nothing, just the noise, charged him, disappeared, nothing. Now that is significant because in the fall, the October of 1982, it was me, a friend of mine, Dave, and my brother decided we're going to go hunt for the local Bigfoot. So as I always say when I do tell the story, we arm ourselves with a homemade pair of nunchucks made out of a shovel handle with two eyelets in it and a dog chain connecting it, wrapped in duct tape, to make them look, bad and black. So we had a homemade pair of nunchucks, a baseball bat, and a dagger that I think it was an antique dagger that was always in our kitchen drawer at that time. I don't know where my father got it, but I remember it had on the handle there was an eagle. Like here's the handle, and there was like an eagle figure right on the tip. And I had the dagger, my friend had the nunchucks, and my brother had the baseball bat. So we go down. It was like 10 in the morning. We go down. It's an October day. The leaves are all, full autumn foliage. We go to the big rock, up through the woods, all around the big rock, across the road from the big rock. We make our way all the way down. And of course, we don't see anything. We're out there for a while. So on our way home, we're just about approaching the bridge, the little bridge that you cross before you get to the church. And there was a little ditch, a little drop off on the side of the road that opened up into a field. And then there was a very sparse woods with some saplings and bushes, and it was fall. And I remember those trees and those bushes were pretty bare at that time. And as we're walking and we're by this embankment opening up to the field and the sparse woods at the end, we hear something growling. It was not only growling, but this thing was like roaring literally like a lion. I mean, it was loud, it sounded mean, and it was coming from the woods straight across the field. We could hear it getting closer until this thing was right in front of us on the little drop off, like right in front of us, roaring in our faces. And I remember looking at my brother and his eyes were huge and he was like white as a ghost. And he said, I don't know what the hell this thing is, but it's invisible. We can't see it. I'm getting the hell out of here. And he takes his baseball bat and he starts to run. My friend starts to run and I'm, of course, right behind them. So this thing came across the field, closer and closer till it's right in front of us. We didn't see a thing. So eventually and inevitably, the noises in our neighborhood just stopped. Nobody's seen anything anymore. Nobody heard anything anymore. It was just over. But I speculate because of that encounter, because A, I know what I saw in the churchyard, this huge ape-like, Sasquatch thing under the street light. B, the big shadow on the side of the road that my friend and I saw, and now this thing coming across the road, roaring, and we can't see it. Plus the fact my father had a similar encounter with something coming out of the woods, rushing him, and just evaporating before before it even got to him. And this brings me to um, another encounter that I always kind of puzzled about. And as I tell this story here in this video, I remember this, and now I'm kind of linking it together. That I was at the churchyard one day. Again, this was probably early fall, maybe mid late September, and I was behind the Sunday school building, and I used to jog. I wanted to be, Rocky Balboa. I used to lift weights and I would jog. I used to run down to the churchyard. I'd go behind the Sunday school building where I would do jumping jacks, push-ups, shadow boxing, and practice my martial arts karate kicks on um, it was like a cinder block chimney structure on the back of the Sunday school building. And I would kick this thing and do drop kicks on it, and all this crazy stuff. And then I'd run back home and lift weights. If I did that now, it would probably kill me. But I was back there, doing my thing, and I hear footsteps to my right. And again, they sound like big footsteps, something or someone running. I look up, I expect to see one of my friends, but what I do see very fleetingly is something very tall. And I swear to God, as crazy as this sounds, it leaps into the air. And as it leaps into the air, it literally turns into a bunch of leaves that just blow past me. And I always remember that. Clear as a bell. Again, I heard it. I heard the running. I look, and then I saw it. Just that fleeting shape, very big running, and it leaps into the air in this, whoosh, leaves. Whether it turned into the leaves or the leaves blew, in the wind as this thing just kind of like vanished, I don't know. But all these leaves just kind of blew past me, and as the thing jumped into the air and kind of disappeared, I do remember there were like leaves suddenly like swirling around right where the thing was. Uh, so was it the same thing? Uh, Maybe, but there was a lot of weird things in that neighborhood back then, and I'll tell some of those stories here on the channel. But because of these particular happenings, I believe, as some people do, and more are starting to believe this, what we call Bigfoot is not a physical creature. We are never going to recover its body. A hunter is not going to shoot one. I believe that they are interdimensional somehow, and it was the first place I read that was by author John Keel, who authored the classic Mothman Prophecies book. And his book, Our Haunted Planet, talks about all these cryptids, Bigfoot, Mothman, Dogman, all these different things we see. And he believed and wrote, this was probably, I think, the 1970s, that they share the earth with us, but they're in a different dimension of reality. And sometimes they just pass through, whether it's by accident or quite on purpose. I think this thing, whatever it was there on purpose. I don't think it was an accident. I think when we were out there looking for it and it's coming across the road, and we can't see it, it was trying to scare us off because here we are looking to do a harm. We got weapons. We're not going to do much, but our intent is not good. And I think it was basically in its own way saying, hey, you stupid kids, get home, leave me the hell alone, beat it. And we did. And we didn't search for the local, Bigfoot after that anymore, though people continued to hear things and see things for a while. So I think these things are interdimensional. I don't think they're physical creatures that are living in the woods or in a cave out in the mountain. Maybe they do. Some people say that Bigfoot will build kind of like a little hut for itself. Maybe if they're here for a purpose, for a time, they will build a structure that they will dwell in temporarily, but then they leave it behind when they go back. And, the Native Americans believed, that these things we call Bigfoot or Sasquatch were a race of very intelligent beings and that they could actually speak. I often wonder what would happen if I had walked up to that thing in the churchyard. It didn't mean me any harm. It showed itself for a reason. Obviously, it knew I was there. And it just walks out from behind the Sunday school building and stands there under the light. It could have caught me. It could have done a lot of damage. There's no way with all my drop kicks and martial arts and working out, there's no way I would have stood a snowball's chance in hell against something like that. I could have been a 411 case where I just disappeared and nobody ever knows what happened. But nothing like that happened. It presented itself, I think, for a reason. And I think being someone who is a sensitive, someone who has encountered things since I was, very small, little kid, maybe it was presenting itself. Maybe it did have a message. Maybe it wanted to tell me something or show me something that would have changed my life forever. But I'll never know because I was too chicken to approach it, and who wouldn't be? If it could speak, I wish it would have, and just said, I mean you no harm, please come here, then maybe I would have kept my distance but stuck around long enough to see, what it wanted. But I'm always curious about that. I think these things are interdimensional. I don't think they're physical. I don't think they're all bad. I don't think they're wild beasts, but I think they are like us. There's good and bad. You hear people that have very positive Sasquatch encounters, and then people who have very negative and where they're attacked. People have said to have been killed. Are they territorial? Were these people doing something they shouldn't have been? Are there just some of them that don't like humanity? Look what we've done to this earth. And I think some of these things are concerned with the well-being of this planet, because I've seen things before, very strange things around trees and plants, almost as like they were observing or checking out if the trees were like okay, or who knows what they were doing. But we have a lot of folklore about these beings that take care of nature and are very close to nature. And sometimes folklore tells a little bit more of a truth than we think. Maybe when we're thinking, little people and fairies and all these, weird little titles that we hang on things. Well, maybe that's not what we're looking at all. Maybe we're looking at interdimensional beings who are just minding their own business. Or maybe they do come out sometimes to hunt animals or us, hence the 411. I do think there's something out there that is taking people, and it's not necessarily human or extraterrestrial. Um, but these things, I believe that they're out there, at least some of them. This thing we call Sasquatch, of course, being one of them. I saw it, I heard it. Other people saw it and heard it in my neighborhood when I was a teenager. And uh, I don't believe it's something we're ever going to find a bone or a nail or, a hunter's going to take one down. I just don't think that's going to happen. So that's my opinion. That's my encounter with what we would call a Sasquatch. And so, what do you guys think? What do you think it wanted? What do you think it was doing there in this little neighborhood, which, by the way, was Indian territory? The whole area where I lived in South Centerville. If you look on Google Maps, you'll see Minisink Valley Central School, which is where I went to school. That whole area was, it's Minisink because it was Indian. The Indians were there. There were Indian burial grounds all over. The Orange County Fair, which you can look up online in Middletown, New York, is actually on an Indian burial ground. And every year when the fair used to come, there was this dump of rain, that would just wash it out for a day or two. And they called it the Orange County Fair Curse, because it was on an Indian burial ground and the rain always came and kind of like cursed the fair for a couple of days. So did it have something to do with that? You know, uh, does this being consider this to be sacred ground? Was it checking on something, taking care of something? What was it doing? What are your thoughts on all of this? So I just wanted to come on here and tell my story. The natives are getting restless upstairs, as you can probably hear. So I'm going to sign off for now, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.